Cool. So this is the third kind of initiative taken by our React community, and today we're gonna talk about core web vitals. What are they? Why do you should worry about that, and how you can optimize those essentially, right? So if you look at it like over the last few decades as the web evolved, I mean, and like people started getting technology oriented. So a lot of companies started building their own websites and publish it into Google, right? So basically, if you look at right now, so there are billions number of hosting available. But then for end of the day, like as a organization for Google, also it was to sort of very important to understand which one to include in their search results and which one to exclude. So on 2018, they came up with these matrices, a set of matrices called core web vitals, where they sort of mentioned three predefined category, and then if your like altogether score of the website is below a certain level, right, or if it exceeds a certain level, they're not gonna include that in your in their search results. So that's where it started from, and then they were on a from long time they were actually saying that yeah, we are going to implement that as soon as possible. But then finally on 2022 this year, this is officially now a part of your website. So whenever you publish your website, be it hosted anywhere, so if your scores are not not matching to a particular criteria, Google will not be including your web page in the search results page, right? So it's basically very important metrics when you also look at ranking high in the SEO. So let's start it on this flow. So if you sort of try to define it, so it's basically a set of standardized matrices from Google in-house developers to understand how the user experiences a web page, right? And like alternatively, like you can also say that it's a specific set of factors that Google considers for a web page to be important for its overall performance. And by default, like the lesser the core vital score is, lesser is the load time of your website plus the user experience of your website, and that gives you a high rank to stand higher on the Google search results. And end of the day, it does make your visitors and search engine both happy. So what happens is, like, if your web page loads earlier, if your core vital score are eventually lesser, so it is like it produces a very good user experience end of the day. And then for the search engine also, it is easier to sort of place and find your website in a proper index. Now, why should we care about it, right? Before that, like, let's have a look at who all actually does care about it. So you can see, like, from the images, because I have just included some of them. Also, starting from e-commerce to retail, like web engines, even a lot of banks nowadays are concentrating on these, on the core vitals matrices. So basically, everyone on the web who are working on their website, who are using the website to generate more revenues for the business, actually everyone else in the web world is taking care about it. Now here are some important case studies, like some famous case studies that I found. So here the left side you can see, like Redbus Columbia region invested in their core web vitals, and it increased 192% of the domain ranking only for Columbia region. And then on the right hand side you can see like Rakuten 24 also investment in core web vitals, invested in core web vitals, and that increased their revenue per visitor by 53.37%, right? And it's not really a joke. And then the conversion rate also was followed, increased by 33% almost. So that's something great that they could achieve, right? Samely, GoDaddy's marketing team, like, right, I mean, started investing in core web vitals, and then their marketing service improved, almost around by 75%. So now coming to the core matrices of it. So there are basically three major matrices of core vitals, right? So, and if you also like try to divide it in three categories, subcategories. So one is LCP, which is largest contentful paint, which does work on your loading performance. The second is FID, or first input delay, which is majorly focuses on your input responsiveness. And the last one is, of course, your CLS, or cumulative layout shift, which is majorly taking care of the visual stability of your website, right? Or rather, of your web page. Before we actually start diving into it, so how do you measure core vitals, and how do you essentially optimize your website, right? So there are these two major tools that are used for measuring core vitals, which is GTmetrix, which is PageSpeed Insight, and you can troubleshoot by tools like Lighthouse, Chrome Dev Tools, Web Vitals. GitHub also have their own Web Vitals library, and you have different several Chrome extensions available, right? Now, before I move ahead, so there are two things to understand. So I mean, depending upon personal use case, people either use PageSpeed Insights or GTmetrix. So for me personally, I have always used PageSpeed Insight, or rather, always relied much more on PageSpeed Insight rather than GTmetrix, because the scores are quite different. If you look at PageSpeed Insight score along, I mean, and if you compare it with GTmetrix, you will find a significant difference in both the scores. The other thing is, like, none of them are, I mean, does give you a real time data. So all the websites, I mean, all the basically tools, be it GTmetrix, be it PageSpeed Insights. I don't know more about GTmetrix, how they collect the data, but for PageSpeed Insights, it Google calls it lab data, and Google itself, don't, I mean, hasn't used this data in their real time. So the source of the PageSpeed Insights data actually comes from your analytics. So in your, I mean, if you have ever hosted your website, or you have the access of the admin panel of it, so you might have seen the analytics this thing like console for it, right? So what happens is, like, your analytics console catches the all the data, like, so how much time your websites take to load, what is the largest contentful element in your website, right? And then from which region your users are coming on a repeated basis. And then so those they call field data. And then from the field data, basically, probably, as far as I remember, if I'm not pretty much wrong, so they sort of holds last 60 days of data, and then produce it as a lab data of your Facebook Insight. So whenever you run an inspection in Lighthouse tool on your Chrome, or if you just paste the URL on PageSpeed Insight, and the data that you get, so that are based on those analytics data. And also, I mean, it is not actually a real time. So you can think, I mean, consider it something like, say, you have gone to a car showroom, like maybe you are visiting a Kia showroom or a Honda showroom, right, for buying a car. So the mileage that they quote you, that is an official mileage, right? So what happens is, once they test drive the car, so they run it like probably on an like runway type scenario, right? I mean, runway type setup where you don't have a lot of potholes, you don't have to press your accelerator and brakes a lot of times. But then that does give you that particular mileage, and that's what the company officially quotes you. But does that really help you out? No, because the official mileage that you get is usually lesser than the quoting mileage, right? So same thing here also. PageSpeed Insight just get a sort of lab data from your Google Analytics, which your analytics collects depending upon the users engagement for a last few periods of time. I mean, fixed periods of time. So that is how to measure it. Now, what above? I mean, what matters most is only the above the fold area. So above the fold area does mean the contents which are available basically on the viewport. So whenever your web page gets loaded, whatever contents you are able to see, so that is what your above the fold area, and based on that, your entire core vital score matters most. So we'll see that when we start diving into it, right? So before I start LCP, so there is one important example that is coming in my mind. So a couple of years ago, I was building an e-commerce website for handicrafts, right? So we failed there miserably. So that is a different story. But let's not go there. So the point was, like, we were appearing for an Y Combinator interview, and like we cleared the first round, and the second round was like, it was supposed to be a 10 minutes of interview. Whereas, like, they did not really have to do anything about what is the tech stack of our website, what our website performs, and how we are accumulating data. But then their first question rather was, why? I mean, what are you using for the website to build? Because this is pretty much slow. Are you guys using some Bootstrap website, or I mean, it is some WordPress, or how you are managing it? So the reason that so like we at that time we were using an Weeks website. But the reason that I told I mean this particular example is that whenever like a user interacts with your website, the first impression is what which matters the most, right? So that does depend that the user is gonna continue on your website or not, and hence you should worry about the core vitals, at least in today's era. So the first component or the first matrix of these three, parameterized component is that largest contentful paint or LCP, and which majorly deals with your page loading time. Now, if you look at LCP, what it is it's not the time the web page takes to load. It's not the time all the elements takes to be loaded completely. In the example here, so if you see, right, so in this particular page, so this is the only visible viewport area above the whole content, and it takes, like, say, it starts from 0 second, that at end of 9 seconds, the all your contents get fully loaded, right? But at like 5 seconds, there is the LCP score gets generated. And why? Because essentially for this entire web page, this piece of image is the largest content, right? So the text files and the smaller image might be of some kilobytes, but this image can be in MBs, right? So these things were a largest content pool, the largest element in the web pages. So it's essentially the time taken for the largest element of the web page to get loaded completely, and that's what the time taken to calculate your LCP score. So which is in this particular example 5 seconds. And then obviously, like, that differs from device to device. Like, say for example, you are loading the same web page in a desktop, so LCP score would necessarily be better, right? Because you would be essentially connected with a fast Wi-Fi and stuff like that. But you are, say, like, in some remote area and you are trying to load the same website in your mobile, right, or maybe in a 3G mobile. So this LCP score will be greater than this particular case, or from your desktop use case, of course. Now, these are the general, elements that causes your LCP score. I mean, that basically consists your LCP score, and these can affect your LCP score, whether it is lesser or higher, on a higher side, right? Images. I mean, the and probably I missed something. Okay, no, fine. So the major things are images again, the video elements, and like make sure that if you are using an element, which has a like background load functionality, that you are fetching it from some other URL, or some function. So that image can also cause you an LCP, I mean higher LCP score. And of course your block level elements, which basically contains a lot of render blocking codes inside it, right, or nested elements in that particular node. So these all are the elements which generally cause your LCP. Now we'll try seeing how can we optimize the LCP score, and these are the like general ways on how you can optimize it. So we'll see like what do you mean by web page planning, font display swap property, minification, deferring, and image optimization. No, generally, like if you like say run a Google search on web on how to optimize your LCP score, these 4 or 5 are the results that you end up getting with, right? So most of the times it is they say you to upgrade your hosting, use a CDN for any assets or images that you are using over the app, minify your HTML, CSS, and LML caching. Now, of course, all these things are important. So I have extensively covered the minify HTML, CSS part in the later part of it. But then the rest 3 parts also are important. Like, so your hosting is essentially very important when you are running a big website. Let's say for example, if you are on Amazon or you are on Facebook, so without your hosting you cannot even proceed ahead, right? So these sort of things are important. But then today we will majorly look onto the use cases that as a developer we can take measure of, right? So say for example, in our daily use case scenario, so these also all these things also get decided by the respective partners we are working with, right? So all these are not something that we can like make a decision on, to be very honest, in some cases, of course. So yeah, we'll like in today's example, like, or in today's session, we'll rather be working more on how as a developer we can take care of things which are in our hand. So these are the important matrices which you should care about. So you should not use an unoptimized image. Your code, any piece of code which executes JS inside it at the loading time. You should avoid any slide slow or any animation as a banner image or as a hero image in the website. I mean web pages. Topmost area which is basically visible. So that is what cost you most LCP score, right? And then, of course, you should avoid your hosted videos, custom fonts, and you should try keeping your images small and keep your text optimized. Now, we'll like see all the things one by one. So starting with your fonts, right? So what happens is nowadays websites have become very fancy, correct? So what we try doing is we try gathering some fancy fonts, downloading it from internet, and then we put it in our assets file, right? But at runtime, your browser in that, I mean, the particular browser that you are loading your web page doesn't know that font, right? Because that's not a system default font. So in terms of to be able to load your font, it has to first download the fonts at the same time once the JavaScript and HTML and CSS are getting loaded, right? So that does take time for your browser. So that cause a higher LCP score. And instead, what you can do is you can like use a system default font at the loading time, and you can just in the font first class or like attribute, you can just mention these attribute fonts display so on. So what happens is like here in this particular use case, so I am say trying to use Open Sans regular, but then I am abstracting it from loading at the from downloading at the load time, right? So what happens is it will start downloading parallelly, like, but it will not try, I mean, it will not wait for the JavaScript, or it will not basically wait for this entire file to get downloaded and then load my content, right? So instead it will first try to load the content with the default browser fonts, and once this fonts gets downloaded from the internet or from the source, so that will be my default loaded like fonts in the web page will be replaced by this particular font family. So this is one of the very useful scenario when you are working with custom fonts. Sorry. And then apart from that, like you also try to, I mean, while using custom fonts, there are some disadvantage as well, so which will come probably in the FID or CLS segment. So let's go one by one now. And you should also, take special consideration on render blocking elements. So what is a render blocking element? Nothing, basically anything that sort of, blocks the execution of your JavaScript code in the main thread, right? Say, for example, you are running some long running operation. You are making probably an API call, which will give you 100 images, right? And then depending upon that response, you will manipulate, right? Or say like you are loading a long script at the, and which you need essentially probably to sort of work further in your page. So I mean there are 3-4 ways to do that. So number one is keep your DOM size as small as possible. Number two is use a default tag whenever you are using a third-party script which is needed in the website. Use a default tag, not an async essentially, because async will sort of partially solve your situation, but it will again start executing as soon as it gets downloaded, right? But on default, like it will download it will keep it there, it will wait for all the other scripts to get executed. Once there is no other script, then only this particular tag will be executed. So that's why defer is the probably a better way from async in this particular case. And then in any of the places where say like you have any long running operations or anything, try using asynchronous JavaScript. I mean, you can use a promise, you can use async habit, you can use even a set timeout, right? The only idea is that you should not block your main thread while you are loading your website at least. Now, the other important way is minification. A lot of modern days frameworks and libraries, be it React, Angular, Vue, like they take care of minification to some extent, right? So what minification does is that you write a lot of code, right? In an like you have a lot of indentation in the code. You are using say like some lint to make your code more readable. So all those things are things are required by you to understand, because you are a human and you're gonna read that. But those are not required for your browser or for the machine to necessarily be in place. So minification is the process of removing all the spaces basically from all your file and bundling it up to a single file, right? So which we already covered in I remember probably in the first React workshop if you guys have followed up. But anyways, so like a lot of modern days frameworks and libraries does this minification for you. But then you should like essentially avoid writing inline CSS. So inline CSS is a big no if you are like considering your LCP performance, like LCP score, right? And although the say frameworks and libraries like React or Angular does the minification for you, in some cases like Angular even does the uglification for you, right? But then they really can't remove your unused code or unused imports, right? So what you essentially can do to remove it, either like you can use some plugins which will be removing all the unused codes from your file at the runtime. You can manually do that. And of course, the third is you can write some test cases. Like you can basically set up the pipeline. You can write some test cases. So whenever your pipeline runs, like at the point it comes to know that, yeah, there is a particular line where you have an unused imports or a piece of code that is not getting used, or suppose like some variable you have declared but you have never used. So it will like automatically, I mean, the pipeline will be filled, and you can basically go back to that particular line and fix that. So these are the general ways to taking care of minification. And for unused asset, like you can go to Chrome DevTools, you can like click on show coverage, and it will be showing you the unused asset, right? So if you look at this particular area, right, these particular images, so the red is like bigger because the unused assets here is bigger. If the unused assets are lesser, the red line would have been smaller, right? So generally this used to be the file name, or like say suppose you are using an npm module, right? So this will also come over here, and you have never used that module, say for example. So this is generally like the file name or the place where you can essentially find out it, and the right side shows you the coverage, how it is affecting you. And then same happens with JS and CSS also. So there are two major ways. You can either do it manually, or you can use any plugin or some automated way you can find it out. So Purify is a very good plugin. I mean, Purify basically is a very good way to do it, and Flying Script is a free plugin which I have used in some point, and I was quite satisfied how the way they do it. So this entire process is called purification. Basically, your unused CSS, JSS, and assets, removing those which are not using, I mean, which are not in use anymore. Now, the images is again, like I believe personally, like in modern days websites, images are the major thing which cause your LCP score to be higher, right? The reason behind it is generally your image is not optimized. You are using an image in a wrong format, and the size is tremendously wrong, correct? So what happens is, if you are say like using an image and you haven't mentioned any size, so your viewport doesn't know what is the default size, or what will be the like in which let's say area it should actually render. So it tries to renders on the image's original size. So the ways to fix that is generally, use a JPEG or PNG image. Rather use a JPEG image and use a PNG image only when you require something like a transparent background, because JPEG does not provide you that. Now the other thing which is on very like on top of internet now is a WebP format. So it is Google's own format, and you can also find a lot of converter tool which converts your JPEG or PNG image to a WebP image. And then like bitmap, BMP is nothing but bitmap. So we all know that bitmap probably gives you the best resolution image, but then it's very high in size, right? So bitmap image, using it in a web page is a strict no at any point. And then like you can also search for a CD and say like if you have grown tremendously, and for you it's very, becoming very hard to sort of manage all the image, all the things manually. So you can always refer to some good CDN and use that. Okay, so here like ends the LCP section, and we are gonna enter the second important metrics of it, which is fast input delay, right? And which generally deals with the interactivity of the page. So now think of something that, let's say like you all are seeing me first time, right? Now say in a one-to-one conversion, like I am, say like you any of you have met me in person one-to-one, and suppose like you have greeted me with something like good morning or something, right? Now the way I respond to you back, that does create an impression to you, right? And the second time you will be referring to it. I mean, no matter how I behave with you for the rest of the session, the next time you will be coming to me, that will be behind your mind somewhere, right? Like, dude, like I like greeted this guy for the first time, and he did not even greeted me back, right, or something. So that's what is a first impression, right? And we often say that first impression is the last impression. As the same thing is very important for your web page as well. Like it sort of works the same way. So if you look at FID, anything, so it gets measured in millisecond, right? So anything below 100 millisecond, the score is good. Anything from 100 to 300, it is okay-ish. Like Google keeps it in needs improvement category. And for anything more than 300, it comes under poor, right? And probably if you're, I'm not pretty much sure, but then yeah, probably if your FID score, gets crossed somewhere around 500 or something, that will be, I mean, your CLS criteria will be failing. So this is again like how to optimize your FID. So the things are again like you can reduce your JS execution time, you can optimize your CSS, minimize the main thread work, and reduce the third-party code. So by this time, you might be thinking that I am repeating a lot of things. But if you have remembered at the beginning of the session, I have told that these three are not individual matrices, right? So these three are all together. I mean, these three all together combines your like web vital score, which is like very much tightly coupled, like which are very much dependent like to each other, right? So if you say like take care of your LCP, your FID score automatically will be taken care of. So the reason behind like your okay, let me come back. Okay, so before I go back here, right? So this is your let's say this is a screenshot of a page speed insight, right? And one important thing I wanna say here, like once you say like running an inspection in page speed insight or the Lighthouse tool of your Chrome, so you won't be able to find the FID score, right? You would be finding something like a TBT score, total blocking time. The reason you don't find a FID score is FID needs manual intervention, right? So the time, like I say, like, start interacting with the website. So that is your FID score. It is not the time taken for the website to get loaded. Like try to think it something like, say, like I have a website, right? And inside the web page, I have a button. So the time that the button will be available for me to be able to press, and as soon as I press the button, the time it will also take to say like start start executing the function rather. So that is your FID score. Okay. So and since it like needs manual intervention needed, so obviously like whenever any search engine or any browser is crawling down your data, it cannot like actually read your manual inputs things, right? So that's why FID score you won't be able to find it in a page speed insight or even GTmetrix or Lighthouse. So what you can find is TBT score, which is eventually equivalent to your FID score. So you should optimize your TBT score so that the total blocking time score is lesser and your FID gets improved eventually. Here we come to the last topic of our of today's session, which is CLS, cumulative layout shift, and is majorly deals with your visual stability, right? So have a look at this video first. So I believe this has been happened with everyone present here at some point or the other, right? So majorly with some news websites, or some blog post. So what happens is you try reading something and some demon pops up, right? So look at this guy, like he is so cool, like he just pops up and he just kicks out your layout from your visible viewport to something else, right? So that is what is CLS, right? So it is basically a measure of the largest burst of the layout shift that happens inside your viewport. And your like CLS score is measured on this three matrices. So if your CLS score is less than 0.1, it comes under good. If it comes under 0.21 to 0.25, Google keeps it in the needs improvement category. Anything more than 2.25 is basically a poor CLS score. Right now, how you can troubleshoot which are the elements that is causing your CLS is the like you can go to the performance tab, like in the Chrome Inspect tool. You can just click on the web vitals. You can just check this web vitals checkbox, and you can reload this site, right? So it will take a couple of seconds to produce the result. And here you can see these are the layout shifts that has happened, right, in your this particular web page. So I haven't sort of attached the picture of the web page, but yeah, from here you can see like these are the layout shifts that has happened, right? Now if you click here, so in the bottom side, like you will be able to find the elements that are creating the layout shift. It's same like you hover on an element, right? So if you try to hover it, it will also be pointing out on that particular element of your web page. And if that's that's how you can find your layout shifts. Basically the elements which are causing you layout shifts. Now these are again the major four things which eventually are responsible for making a layout shifts, which is images without dimensions, any ads and or like embedded iframes, or any basically you can say like dynamically injected content, right, which happens dynamically at the runtime, and your web fonts again. So here comes, if you have remember the first few slides on the LCP, I told that by using the font display swap, you can eventually like say reduce your LCP score, right? But whenever you are using a font display swap, that will essentially be causing, I mean, resulting you a poor CLS score. I mean, not a poor CLS score, but your CLS score will be affected, right? The reason behind it, the custom font that you are using is obviously not, the, I mean, size BP. I mean, if you look at the size or, fonts wise, so its size does matter from your default browser fonts sizes, right? So any time like you are using a custom fonts, it will cause you CLS. Now depending upon the custom fonts that you are using, the CLS score might be very poor, or it might be intermediate, or something to manageable. But yeah, anytime you use a custom font, it will cause you a poor CLS. So if you look at also the current date, right? So today almost around 70% of the websites all over the globe uh, uses system default font. So that's why it sort of like manages both the things. So if you use a system default fonts, you don't have to worry about CLS, because there is no scope of the fonts getting like read loaded with a different size, and your LCP score will essentially be lower because there is nothing to load from the front perspective at least. Like best practices to improve CLS is again like emphasizing on the fonts majorly. If you are not using any ads or any iframe, right? So because what happens, like in most of the enterprise application nowadays, you don't put a lot of ads, right? So advertisement are majorly, say, like if you are working with some blog post, or if you are working with some free content, where like say for example a news article, right? Like since the business is important, end of the day revenue is important, end of the day, this sort of websites plays, I mean, keeps advertisement into it, because that is a source of their revenue. But suppose like you are building something for some X bank, right, tomorrow, or you are building something for some X e-commerce company, they will not essentially put you an ad, because that is something that plays like direct feedback on the user experience, correct? So that's what advertisement will be probably the rarest thing that we will be coming across. But yeah, there are things to fix for that also. So I'll come up there later. So coming again, talking about fonts, yeah, I mean, try to avoid the fonts, or like try to use at least fonts if in case like you have to use custom fonts. Try to use the fonts which are almost similar to the system default fonts. And then you can like host your fonts, like which will be pre-rendered basically. So what you can do is you can like upload the font file in your server, and then at the time the web page gets loaded, you can preload to the fonts, right? So that might essentially reduce your load time as well as your CLS, right? And again, like images stands the same here as well. uh, Converting of the images to WebP format stands here. And then giving a proper size of the image is also something which is important, right? So unless you say define some extra, like height width for that image, like on yeah, I mean basically depending, I mean like if you don't like say put a placeholder sort of thing, which will be the maximum height and width for any image or any text field or any say like visual element that you are using, that might cause you a CLS, right? So apart from that, yeah, like if you are working with ads or dynamic content, I mean, don't forget to reserve enough space. So what happens is, if you, I don't know, like if you have ever worked with advertisement, the way the advertisement plays is, they try to, I mean, load the entire advertisement content, right? Now, say I am like trying to load an advertisement, but the height and width of advertisement is something bigger, right? And say I have personally, like reserved a placeholder of 500 cross 500 pixel, but the advertisement might be of 800 width, right? 800 pixel width. So at that point, the advertisement will not load, and that will result up on a like weird unloading type logo on your website. So in that case, also you have to handle it in a way so you can like rather like write some fail cases, like you can have some image or something for the fail cases, and I mean basically which matches the size of your placeholder, and you can put that over there. uh, Else like you can reserve enough space for the advertisement to load, right? Then again, like reserve enough space for any placeholder or content that takes a long time to load, and majorly these are either your banner image or hero images. And the other thing, like even if you are working with advertisement, I'd say like a very clever approach here is to load all your advertisement in the when the user starts interacting, right? So what happens is when Google calculates your CLS score, So it does only calculate for your above the port area, which is the visible area, as I already like showed you guys in the first couple of slides, right? So it does not actually it cannot calculate it like what will happen for the contents which has not been yet been visible in the viewport. So like another like a clever way to deal with advertisement is you can try to load your advertisement at the scrolling, like once the user starts scrolling it up. Of course, it is gonna affect on user experience if you have not measured, taken care of all these scenarios. But that will not that will at least not be affecting your CLS score, correct? So it does that as that way your CLS score will be intact. But of course, like from an user experience point of view, your user experience will be getting like hamper if you have not taken care of the advertisement properly. So now working with images again, like basically there are here comes basically the aspect ratio, right? So what happens is nowadays in the in the modern browsers, if you put something like, if you look at the left example, right? So height and width is the width. So aspect ratio is nothing but the height by width, right? So it's basically that is the thing. So it's height respect to the width of that particular element. So now width and height is like 640 and 360, and it generally automatically calculates the aspect ratio along with that. So it's basically a 16:9, right? So this is what happens, by default behind the scenes when you write this code, right? And the other way is you can like use something called a max width, or you can like dynamically put some width in a responsiveness way. So for example, in this scenario, like it is 100% of the total viewport, right? So that this is also another approach. And the other good thing to work with image is using source set. So source set is nothing but it sort of like you define all the configuration of the image, and depending upon the viewport that you are using, basically your web page is using, it tries to fetch that particular configuration or that particular resolution, right? So if you guys have worked with mobile technologies, like and if you have come across the XDPI, XS HDPI format in Android, or say like @1x, @2x format in iOS. So this is something like that, right? So you store different resolution for the image, and then depending upon your viewports, your browser just picks up that particular image. And now finally, so I tried looking how GeekyAnts perform in different portal, right? In different matrices. So this is a screenshot from GTmetrix, and these two are from your PageSpeed Insight. This is from Lighthouse, right? Now you can essentially see. I obviously haven't put all the photos here. Last thing that I was saying is your GTmetrix score again does not completely match with your PageSpeed Insight or Lighthouse score. So the reason behind, that's my personal observation again, but I don't know like pretty sure. So your GTmetrix try to get the results based on your mobile page performance. So it always try to sort of emphasize on mobile loading first, since the mobile loading is complicated generally, like from your web, from your browser, like from your desktop browser, right? But in PageSpeed Insight, you can test it differently. Like you can in PageSpeed Insight, you will find it to load. Test it differently for mobile and for web, and then like the scores will also be might be different depending upon the particular use case, right? So that was it. That was all about my presentation. Now, like so, there are few more things, but then obviously, like in a single session, code vehicles itself is a long thing to understand, right? So in a single session, it is not possible to come up with everything. But yeah, you guys can reach out to me, comment out. You guys can ping us in the React help channel if you want to know on like any particular scenario, any particular metrics in detail. Like say for example, CLS, beat CLS, beat LCP, FID, right? And there are also a lot of good case studies over the internet which probably we can cover to make it understand more that how we can optimize CLS score of a website. So I remember there is a very famous luxury brand based out of French called probably something like Kohli or something. So they revamped their website completely to optimize their LCP, their core web vital score, and that improved their traffic for almost around 70%, and that they also saw increase in their sales conversion for almost around 25%. So yeah, there are like this kind of interesting topics. So you guys can research on it, and you can also let me know if you want to know further, or we can like if I I need to cover any particular metrics in detail, so we can do that for the upcoming session. So for now, I am done from my end, and over to you guys. So who all are here or over the internet, anything to ask, you can just proceed ahead and ask me out. Sorry, are there any tool which help the same in Next.js app, especially TBT and mobile and other things? Yeah, so these are the tools. Like, so these doesn't again depend on any particular framework. So these are not specific to a framework, right? So in your Next.js app also, if you just try loading it in localhost, and you can run your inspection on Chrome Lighthouse, or you have deployed it, you can just just put that URL in your PageSpeed Insight or your or PT metrics, you will be able to get the score. If the application is in development mode, there is a chance that there might not be a sufficient data, or the data that you are getting might be wrong. So in that case, Lighthouse is something that you can refer to or you can trust on. So yeah, I think sort of your question. The answer to your question is this. Thank you again for joining in on Friday afternoon, and we'll see you guys back